touch that sparked fire. The council chamber was bright with alien lights. Massive pillars rose high above the crowd. Voices of many species echoed through the air. Leaders of worlds gathered to speak of treaties, trade, and war. In the middle of it all stood a small human envoy, calm. Dressed in a simple uniform, at his side held the hand of his daughter. She was no more than 7 years old. Her eyes wide with wonder, she looked at the strange aliens with their scales, horns, and glowing skin. She whispered to her father, asking small questions, her voice soft like a song. The father smiled, answering with patience. He had brought her because he believed the galaxy should see the innocence of humanity. Not just its warships, not just its machines, but its heart. Most in the chamber ignored the child, but not all. Near the steps stood guards of a proud warrior race. Tall, covered in iron-like armor, their warlord was expected soon. They laughed among themselves at the sight of the human child. To them she was weak, fragile. Nothing more than prey in a universe ruled by strength. As the child passed near them, one guard stretched his hand. He shoved her shoulder roughly. She fell down onto the cold stone floor. Her small cry echoed through the chamber for one instant. Silence spread like a wave, everyone froze. The sound of her pain cut through the air sharper than any weapon. The father's face turned pale. He rushed to lift his daughter, holding her close. His hand shook not from fear but from fury. He whispered to her gently, telling her it would be fine, yet his eyes never left the guard. The alien guard laughed, a cruel sound that carried across the hall. So fragile, even a touch breaks them, he said to his companions. The other guards chuckled, their voices like thunder. Whispers ran across the chamber. Species of many worlds watched. Some shook their heads, others smirked. Many had thought humans were soft, easy to push aside. Now they waited to see how the humans would answer. But the envoy said nothing. He only stood tall, his child in his arms, his expression calm but empty. It was the kind of calm that felt dangerous. Like the silence before a storm, a member of the council tried to change the subject, speaking loudly of trade routes, but no one truly listened. Every eye returned to the human envoy, waiting, measuring, wondering. The child pressed her face against her father's chest, still trembling. He stroked her hair, whispering comfort. Inside his heart a fire burned. In human history there was no insult greater than harm to a child. Countless wars on Earth had begun over less. Countless kingdoms had fallen when mothers and fathers rose with fury. In the high balcony, the alien warlord entered. He was massive, towering above all others. His armor shone with battle scars, his tusks curled like blades. He looked down and laughed as if the incident was nothing. A child cries, and the galaxy holds its breath, he said with mockery, his voice deep and cruel. The council chamber filled with nervous laughter. Some aliens joined to please the warlord. Others stayed silent, not daring to show their unease. But humanity did not laugh. The envoy's eyes met the warlord's eyes, and in that moment something unspoken passed between them. The warlord thought he had seen weakness, but what he truly saw was warning. The child wiped her tears. She whispered, "Father, why did they hurt me?" Her words carried like a knife, not just to him, but to the chamber. The council could not forget them. He leaned close, his voice calm, because they do not know what it means yet. And with those words, the future was sealed. Humans were patient, they were builders, explorers, dreamers, but when it came to their children, they were protectors like no other. History would later say that moment, the small cry of a child, was the spark that set the stars trembling. Rumors began to move faster than speeches. Across the chamber voices whispered, "What will the humans do? Will they let this pass? Will they forgive?" Some laughed, saying humans would complain. Others shook with fear, for deep in their bones they felt it. The silence of the envoy was not surrender. It was a blade being sharpened. The guard who pushed the child stood tall with pride. He did not know that his action had already written the doom of his warlord. His cruelty was not forgotten. It was recorded in every heart that watched. And as the council tried to continue with words of law and order, every alien present knew the truth. Nothing spoken that day mattered more than the cry of the child. Because in the galaxy, power was measured in fleets and weapons. But with humans, power was measured in something else, in the fierce love they held for their young. And when that love was tested, it became wrath. The father stood silent, but behind his calm eyes, Earth itself was already moving. The touch that shoved the child was the touch that sparked fire, and soon the fire would consume the warlord. Silence before the storm. The chamber did not return to normal even though the council members spoke. Even though the warlord roared with laughter, a heavy silence remained in the air. It was the silence that comes when everyone feels danger close. The human envoy carried his daughter out of the chamber slowly. No anger shown, no words shouted, but every step was heavy, as if marking the ground with a promise. Many alien eyes followed him, some mocking, some fearful, all uncertain. Behind the walls of the council, messages were already flying through secret channels. Alien delegates whispered to their governments, "The humans will not forgive this one, they will strike back." But no one knew how. No one knew when. In the grand palace of the Warlord, celebrations began. His warriors shouted in pride. To them it was nothing but a display of power, a reminder that humans were only newcomers in the galaxy. They laughed that a child's cry had shaken so many. They believed the humans had no courage to act. Yet far away, beyond the eyes of the council, in the cold dark void, human ships shifted quietly. Fleets that had been at rest now stirred awake. Engines hummed low, railguns powered up. Their captains received only one message, short and cold: protect the children. The silence of the human envoy was not weakness. It was command, it was signal back on Earth. Families saw the images broadcast from the council chamber. Billions watched the small human girl being pushed. Billions heard her cry. The reaction was not calm. Protests filled the streets. Leaders stood before crowds, voices fierce. "We will not be silent when one of our children is harmed." Old veterans of Earth's wars clenched their fists. Mothers and fathers held their children closer. Humanity as one species had been insulted. It was no longer a question of diplomacy. It was a matter of survival, of honor, of blood in the chamber. The Warlord still mocked. Humans pretend to be strong, but they walk away with their tails between their legs. His voice thundered. He looked to the council, daring anyone to challenge him. No one did, but many avoided his eyes in the shadows of the council hall. Human intelligence officers worked quietly, their small devices scanning, mapping, recording. No movement went unnoticed. No whisper went unheard. The humans left the chamber outwardly calm, but in truth they left with everything they needed. As night fell over the alien capital, the city lights glittered. Towers reached the sky. Warriors drank and sang, believing themselves untouchable. But above the clouds, hidden in the black sky, small human craft glided in silence. They moved like shadows, their presence unseen, their weapons locked. Inside one of those craft sat the human commander, his face stern, his voice steady as he spoke to his team. "Remember this, they touched one of ours. They mocked our blood. Tonight we remind them what it costs." His soldiers nodded, eyes burning with quiet fury. They were not here for conquest. They were here for justice, swift and absolute. The council chamber prepared for the next morning. Diplomats ready with speeches, but unease gnawed at them. Whispers carried like ghosts in the halls. The humans are too quiet. Their silence feels like thunder waiting to fall. Back in the palace, the Warlord sat upon his throne feasting with his warriors, his tusks gleaming in the firelight. He told stories of battles, of worlds conquered, and now he added humans to his tales, calling them fragile, calling them weak. His warriors roared with laughter, slamming their fists against the stone tables. But deep inside, a single thought flickered in his mind. Why had the humans said nothing? Why had they left without protest? He pushed the thought away, drowning it with more laughter. But the thought remained like a seed. The human envoy stood in his quarters, his daughter asleep in bed. He looked at her face, peaceful now, yet bruised by the cruelty of the guard. He whispered to himself, "They will learn," his voice low, carrying the weight of a promise that stretched beyond stars. Outside, the silence grew. Silence in the human fleet, silence in the alien city, silence in the chamber, silence before the storm, and as the night deepened, one truth hung heavy in the air. The galaxy had not yet understood what it meant to harm a human child, but they would soon. The first blow. The alien capital city woke with pride the next morning. The Warlord's banners waved high above towers. His warriors marched through streets with heavy steps. Drums echoed like thunder. The people believed their ruler had humiliated the humans and nothing would come of it. Markets bustled. Skies were filled with transport craft. The scent of victory hung in the air. Yet beneath the surface something unseen stirred. Satellites blinked out of orbit one by one. Power grids flickered for half a second before returning. Security patrols reported strange signals. None of it made sense in the Warlord's palace. Laughter rolled again. The Warlord raised his fist, boasting of the council meeting. "Humans are weak. One push and they fall," he shouted. His warriors cheered, but outside those walls, shadows moved high above, hidden in low orbit. Human ships glided silently, black as the void. their systems cold and quiet. Every railgun locked, every drone armed. They had been waiting all night for the signal. The signal came not with words but with a sound, the voice of a child's cry recorded from the council chamber. It played softly across every comm in the strike fleet, a reminder of why they were there. Silence filled the cockpits after the recording ended. Then one voice spoke, steady and cold. "Begin." The first strike came without warning. A blast of electromagnetic pulse swept across the city. Lights died, towers went dark. Communication fell silent. Engines stalled. The proud alien capital was blinded in seconds. The Warlord's warriors stumbled, weapons dead in their hands. Alarms howled, but no signals answered. Confusion spread like fire. They had never faced an enemy that moved so fast. Then came the shadows. Human drones dropped from the sky like rain. Small, precise, merciless, they struck guard posts, armor, supply depots, each shot clean. No wasted movement, panic spread. Citizens screamed, warriors scrambled. But they fought blind, unable to see the enemy. Railgun fire cracked like thunder, each round tearing through steel as if it were paper. The Warlord roared in rage, slamming his fists against the stone of his throne. "Find them, destroy them," he bellowed. But his commanders brought only silence. They had no answers inside the palace gates. Explosions shook the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. The Warlord's guards formed ranks, yet their fear showed in trembling hands. Through the smoke came the first human strike team. Black armor, faces hidden, eyes glowing with cold determination. They moved like shadows, silent, unstoppable. A guard raised his blade and shouted. But before the word left his lips, a railgun bolt ripped through his chest. He collapsed without a sound. The others panicked, firing wildly into smoke, hitting nothing. Humans moved in formation. Every step precise, every target marked. They were not there to fight a war. They were there to end one. The Warlord rose, his tusks gleaming, his voice thundering. "I will tear them apart with my own hands." He grabbed a massive axe, his steps shaking the ground. His warriors cheered weakly, clinging to his strength. But deep down, even he felt it. The fear that humans had no fear. Across the city, alien civilians peered from windows. They had mocked humans yesterday, now they whispered. "They are here for blood. They are not like us in the council chamber." The delegates received emergency reports. Their screens flickered with static. Voices broke with panic. "The humans, they are here." "The palace burns," some delegates gasped. Others remained silent, realizing the truth they had ignored. Humanity had answered in the palace courtyard. The human strike team advanced. Bodies of guards lay silent. Railgun smoke rose in the air. The Warlord stood at the top of the stairs, axe in hand, his voice shaking but loud. "You dare challenge me in my own hall?" The human commander stepped forward, his weapon raised, his voice calm. "You touched one of ours." The words echoed like a blade across the courtyard. Even the Warlord's warriors fell silent. The Warlord roared and charged, his massive axe swinging, but humans did not flinch. The first blow of his weapon never landed, because before the axe fell, 3 railgun bolts struck his armor, shattering it like glass. He staggered, his tusks cracked, blood sprayed. He stumbled but did not fall, rage held him. But he was no longer laughing, no longer mocking. Now he knew fear. The first blow had been struck and the storm had only begun. The wrath of parents. The Warlord staggered under the weight of the railgun bolts, his body bleeding, his pride shaking. His warriors cried out in anger, but their fear was stronger. They had never seen their leader wounded so quickly. The human strike team did not cheer. They did not laugh, they only advanced with steady steps. Their weapons aimed, their eyes cold. They were not here for glory. They were here for justice. The Warlord tried to rise tall again, gripping his axe, roaring to hide the tremor in his voice. "You think this ends me? You think this ends my people?" His tusks gleamed. His rage burned, but the humans did not answer. Instead, one of the soldiers spoke quietly, almost like whisper. "You touched a child." The words were soft, yet carried louder than the Warlord's roar. In that moment, history itself seemed to awaken. Because in every age of Earth, from ancient tribes to modern cities, from forgotten deserts to frozen mountains, the story was the same. When a child was harmed, humanity rose not with reason, not with hesitation, but with a wrath that shattered empires. Flashbacks painted themselves across the mind. Mothers in old villages taking up spears when raiders threatened their young. Fathers marching into hopeless wars because their children's cries demanded it. Generations who built weapons not for conquest but for protection. All of that spirit was now standing in the alien palace, alive in the eyes of the strike team. The Warlord swung his axe again, a mighty arc that split stone when it missed. The ground cracked, The air shook, but no human soldier fell. They moved with reflexes honed by centuries of survival. Their bodies ducked, rolled, and countered with precision fire. Each railgun shot tearing another piece of the warlord's strength. His warriors rushed forward to defend him, but it was like sand trying to block a flood. The humans moved with the fury of parents. Every shot clean, every strike merciless. They did not see enemies. They saw threats to their children, and threats were erased in the council chamber. News flickered across broken screens, voices screamed, "The warlord bleeds, the palace burns." Silence fell over the alien leaders. They realized too late that humanity was not just another species. Humanity was something different, something dangerous in the warlord's hall. Smoke rose, fire crackled. The warlord roared again, his voice filled with desperation. "They are only children, weak and small. Why fight for them so fiercely?" he demanded, as if the answer was madness. The human commander stepped forward, his face shadowed beneath his helmet, his voice calm but filled with iron. "Because children are everything without them. We are nothing." Those words struck deeper than any weapon, because they carried truth that every species had forgotten, but humans still lived. The warlord swung once more, his axe shattering as a railgun burst struck its handle. Shards flew through the air. Cutting his own warriors, he fell to his knees, his pride bleeding out faster than his body. The human soldiers circled him, their weapons aimed, their steps like the march of history itself. The warlord looked up, sweat and blood dripping, his voice breaking. "You would kill me over a single child." The commander leaned close, eyes burning. "One child is the reason we live. One child is the reason we fight. You will die because you thought a child was small, and with that..." The warlord's fate was sealed. Outside, the alien city trembled. Civilians hid in fear. They had never seen a species rise with such unity over something so small. Yet they began to understand. For humans, no insult was greater, no wound was deeper than harm to their young. In the council chamber, many leaders lowered their eyes ashamed, because in their pursuit of power, they had forgotten what humans still remembered. The future belongs to the children, and whoever harms them has no place in the stars. The wrath of parents was not a war tactic, it was not strategy, it was instinct. It was older than ships, older than nations. It was the force that built humanity itself, and now it was unleashed upon the warlord as he knelt broken. Gasping, he realized too late the truth. He had not fought soldiers. He had fought mothers, fathers, protectors of the young, and against that, no warlord could stand. The chamber of his throne shook with another blast. Smoke filled the air, and the human stepped closer, ready to deliver the end. The wrath of parents had become judgment, and judgment was at hand. The fall of the warlord. The warlord's hall was filled with smoke. The stone walls cracked from explosions. Broken banners hung from shattered pillars. The once proud palace now looked like a ruin, and at its center knelt the warlord, his tusks chipped, his armor torn, his blood spilling across the floor. His warriors had fallen around him, their bodies scattered like leaves in a storm. None had lasted against the human strike team, their weapons too slow, their courage too weak. They had believed strength was in size, but they had never faced strength born from love of children. The warlord tried to rise again, his knees shaking, his massive hands reaching for a broken axe. But his grip slipped, his fingers bloody, his voice cracked as he growled, "I am not finished. I will never bow." The human commander walked forward, each step echoing, railgun steady in his hands. His soldiers followed in silence, their boots marking the rhythm of doom. The warlord lifted his head, his eyes wild, and he spat. "Humans, you are nothing. A young race, a fragile people. Why do you fight so hard for a child? Why do you throw away peace for something so small?" The commander lowered his weapon for a moment, his voice calm. "Because to us, one child is worth more than all your empires." Those words broke the warlord more than any wound. His chest heaved, his pride crumbled. He realized too late that he had never understood humans. To him, power was conquest, to them, power was protection. And that was a power he could never crush. Suddenly he roared and lunged, his tusks gleaming. His claws stretched to tear the human commander apart. But the strike team was faster. Railgun fire ripped through his chest, each bolt slamming with the force of thunder. The warlord staggered, his body breaking. His roar fading into a gasp, he dropped to his knees again, his breath ragged, his eyes dimming. Blood poured down the steps of his throne. He looked up at the humans, his voice barely more than a whisper. "They were only a child," the commander's reply came cold, sharp, final. "And that is why you die." With one clean motion, a blade flashed. The warlord's head fell from his shoulders. Rolling across the blood-soaked stone, silence followed, broken only by the hiss of smoke and the steady breath of human soldiers. The strike team did not cheer. They did not celebrate, they simply stood. Their mission complete. Their justice served. One of them bent down, lifted the warlord's head by its tusks and carried it with steady hands. Outside, the alien city fell into chaos. Civilians ran through dark streets, whispers spread faster than fire. The warlord is dead. Humans killed him. His head has been taken. Fear filled the air. But not only fear, a strange respect too, because deep in their hearts, even the aliens understood this was no conquest. This was vengeance for a child. Back in the council chamber, alarms echoed. Delegates argued. Some demanded humans be punished. Others stayed silent, waiting, afraid. Suddenly the doors slammed open, and the sound of human boots echoed across the floor. Every leader froze, every voice died. The human strike team entered, black armor still burning from battle, weapons still glowing with power, and in their hands, carried like a grim trophy, was the warlord's severed head. They walked to the center of the chamber, each step heavy with judgment. They placed the head on the council's great table, its tusks dripping with blood, its dead eyes staring at those who had once cheered its power. Gasps filled the chamber. Some alien leaders recoiled in horror, others lowered their gaze. Unable to meet the sight, none dared speak. The commander's voice rang across the silence, cold and sharp. Touch a human child, and this is the fate that awaits you. The words sank deep into the hearts of every species present, deeper than any threat, deeper than any war, because they knew it was not empty. They had seen the proof. The warlord's fall was not just his death. It was a message, a law carved into the stars. Humanity would forgive insults. They would endure mockery, but harm their children, and no empire could survive. The chamber remained silent as the humans turned and walked out, leaving the severed head behind, leaving fear and awe in their wake. And so ended the warlord, not in battle against armies, not in glory, but as a warning, as a lesson, as the price of touching one child. The fall of the warlord was the rise of a legend that would echo across galaxies, whispered in every tongue, never touch a human child. The council in shock. The council chamber had never been so silent, not in all the years of its existence, not during great wars, not during the fall of empires, but now silence ruled. The humans stood at the center, their armor blackened, their weapons calm but ready, and upon the table rested the warlord's head, its tusks stained with blood. Alien leaders stared in horror. Some trembled, others tried to keep their faces still, yet their eyes betrayed fear. The warlord had been powerful, his armies vast, his cruelty feared, yet here he lay reduced to nothing, his head nothing more than a warning. No one dared to speak first. Even those who had mocked humans only days ago sat frozen. The memory of the child's cry echoed in their minds, and now they understood the price of ignoring it. The human commander let the silence linger, every second heavy, every heartbeat like thunder in the chest of those watching. Finally, his voice broke the stillness, steady, cold. Remember this. You may insult us, you may mock us, but if you harm one of our children, you will face our wrath. The words carried across the chamber like a storm. There was no shouting, no threats, just calm truth. And that calm truth struck harder than any weapon. One alien delegate tried to stand, his body shaking. This is murder. This is against the laws of the council. But his voice cracked, and when his eyes met the warlord's severed head, his words fell dead in his mouth. He sat down again in silence. Another whispered to her neighbor, "If this is what they do for one child, what will they do for war?" Her voice trembled around the chamber. Fear spread like fire, but beneath the fear was something else, a new respect. For too long, humanity had been seen as young, untested, fragile. Now they had shown a truth no one could ignore. They were not weak. They were protectors, and protectors could not be broken. Reports arrived from across the galaxy. The warlord's empire had collapsed overnight. His warriors scattered, their courage gone. His people whispered of humans in fear. Legends already forming, stories told to children in hushed voices. Never touch a human child. Never bring their wrath upon us in the chamber. A delegate from a smaller world leaned close to another, whispering, "The humans will change everything. They are not like us, they remember what we have forgotten." The council chair tried to speak. His voice forced, "Humans, what do you ask of us now?" His question was not born of authority, it was born of survival. The commander raised his eyes, his words simple. "We ask nothing, we take nothing, we only remind you. Harm our children and you will not stand, he turned then, his soldiers moving with him, their steps heavy but calm. They left the head behind as proof, as message, as law. When the doors closed behind them, the chamber erupted in whispers. Some demanded humanity be expelled, others shook their heads knowing it was impossible. One voice spoke louder than the rest, trembling but clear. We must never test them again. And so the chamber, once filled with pride and power, became filled with fear. Fear not of humanity's fleets, not of their weapons, but of their heart, because they understood now that the human heart was more dangerous than any cannon. Back in the human envoy's quarters, the child slept peacefully, her father sitting beside her, his eyes soft now. He stroked her hair, whispering, "It is done." She did not know of the blood spilled. She only knew that she was safe, and that was all that mattered. In the streets of the alien capital, people whispered, pointing to the palace ruins that still smoked, telling each other the story of the humans, a story that spread faster than fire, faster than fear itself, a story that would live in every world. And so the council sat in shock, but the galaxy had already changed. A new truth written in blood. The truth was simple, the truth was final. Never touch a human child. The legend begins. The warlord's head remained on the council table for many days, untouched, unspoken. None dared to remove it. None dared to look at it too long. It was more than a severed head. It was a symbol, a warning carved in flesh. In the weeks that followed, every world whispered of the humans in markets and taverns. In schools and war camps, the story spread. They touched a human child, and the warlord lost his head. The words traveled faster than ships carried on every voice, retold in every tongue in distant colonies. Children asked their parents, "Is it true? Will the humans fight for us so fiercely?" Parents lowered their eyes and nodded, fear mixed with awe because they knew the truth. For the first time in ages, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten. The power of innocence, the value of children. They had built empires on cruelty. They had forgotten what it meant to protect the small, the weak, the young, but humanity had reminded them, and that reminder burned into their memory. The fallen warlord's people tried to rise again, but their enemies struck quickly. No one feared them now, for all knew they had been crushed not by armies but by a single cry of a child. They were broken in spirit, their empire scattered like dust in the council records. Historians gave the event a name. They called it the Day of the Child's Cry, and they marked it as the moment humanity stepped out of the shadows, no longer seen as fragile newcomers but as guardians, guardians that no empire dared to test. Across alien worlds, storytellers spoke in hushed tones. Never harm a human child, for their people will come for you. They will find you, and they will not stop. The tale grew into legend, and legend grew into fear. But for humans, it was not legend. It was not story. It was truth, deep within their culture. It was the same truth they had carried since the dawn of their history. Every child mattered. Every child was the future, and for the future, humanity would burn the stars if needed. The envoy sat once more in his quarters, his daughter playing beside him. She laughed again, the bruise on her shoulder fading. She asked, "Father, are they still angry with us?" He smiled gently. "No, little one, they are afraid of us now." She tilted her head, not understanding, and went back to her games, innocence untouched, and perhaps that was the real victory. Not the death of the warlord, not the fear in the council, but the laughter of a child who had been hurt, now free again, safe under the shield of her people. In hidden corners of the galaxy, some leaders plotted revenge, but their own advisors shook their heads. Do not test them. Remember the head on the table. Fear kept their anger locked away. Time passed, but the memory did not fade. The story was told again and again, until it was no longer just history. It was a legend carried through generations, a law stronger than any written by the council. And so the galaxy changed, not because of fleets, not because of weapons, but because one child cried and humanity answered. The legend began that day and it never ended. Never touch a human child.